Have you ever noticed what happens the moment someone over 60 hears the words type 2 diabetes? For many people, the reaction is immediate. They go straight to the refrigerator, open the door, and start throwing things away. Bread goes first. Desserts disappear, and almost without fail, every block of cheese gets tossed into the trash. For years, people have been told that cheese is dangerous. They've been told that saturated fat is the enemy. They've been told that if they want better blood sugar numbers, they need to avoid cheese altogether. But after nearly 14 years of helping patients manage diabetes and prediabetes, I can tell you something that surprises many people. That advice is often incomplete, because the truth is not that simple. In fact, some of the healthiest, most stable blood sugar readings I have ever seen came from patients who continued eating the right kinds of cheese in the right amounts. Welcome back to Health with Dr. D. Miller. I'm Dr. D. Miller, and today we're going to uncover a truth that could completely change the way you think about cheese, blood sugar, and healthy aging. Now, before we begin, I want to be very clear. I'm not suggesting that all cheese is healthy. I'm not suggesting that you should eat unlimited amounts of it. What I am saying is that certain cheeses may actually help support blood sugar control when they are used correctly. And that starts with understanding something almost nobody explains. Cheese has an extremely low glycemic impact. Unlike bread, rice, pasta, or sugary snacks, cheese contains very little carbohydrate. In most cases, the glycemic index is essentially zero. That means it does not create the rapid blood sugar spike that so many people fear. But here's where things get interesting. Many people check their blood sugar 1 hour after eating cheese and see almost no change. They assume cheese has no effect whatsoever. That isn't entirely true. Your body is far more sophisticated than that. Several hours after you eat cheese, a portion of its protein can be slowly converted into glucose through a natural process called gluconeogenesis. This happens primarily in the liver and usually occurs around 3 to 4 hours after a meal. The fat in cheese can also create a small delayed effect on blood sugar, sometimes appearing 4 to 6 hours later. Now, don't let that scare you. The effect is dramatically different from what happens when you eat refined carbohydrates. Think about it this way. A slice of white bread is like pouring gasoline onto a fire. The flames shoot up quickly, burn intensely, and then crash down just as fast. Cheese is different. Cheese is like a glowing ember inside a wood stove. It burns slowly, quietly, steadily. It doesn't create chaos. It creates stability, and that stability is exactly what many adults over 60 need. The real key is portion size. 1 or 2 thin slices of a firm cheese or a few tablespoons of a soft cheese can actually help slow digestion, reduce the speed at which carbohydrates enter your bloodstream, and increase hormones that support satiety and blood sugar control. In fact, large population studies involving more than 16,000 adults have found that regular consumption of cheese and yogurt is associated with a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. That's why today's video is so important. I'm going to count down the 5 cheeses I most often recommend to my patients living with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. I'll explain exactly how each one works inside the body, how much is appropriate, and how to use it in a way that supports healthy blood sugar levels. And stay with me until the very end, because the number 1 cheese on this list is the one that surprises almost everyone. Most people only use it as a topping, never realizing that it contains one of the most powerful nutrients linked to insulin function and healthy aging. Let's begin with number 5. Let's begin our countdown with number 5. And honestly, this may be one of the easiest changes you can make starting tomorrow morning. Number 5 on my list is fresh mozzarella. Now, I know mozzarella doesn't usually get much attention in conversations about diabetes. Most people think of it as pizza cheese or something they occasionally add to a sandwich. But what many people don't realize is that fresh mozzarella offers something incredibly valuable for blood sugar control. And that benefit starts in a place most people never think about: your gut. For years, diabetes was viewed mainly as a problem involving the pancreas and insulin. Today, we know the story is much bigger. Some of the most exciting discoveries in metabolic health are happening inside the digestive system. Fresh mozzarella is naturally fermented and contains beneficial bacterial cultures that help support a healthier gut microbiome. And that matters because the bacteria living inside your digestive tract do far more than help digest food. They influence inflammation, they influence appetite, they influence insulin sensitivity, and in many ways, they influence how efficiently your body manages blood sugar every single day. When healthy bacteria thrive inside the gut, they produce compounds known as short-chain fatty acids. One of the most important is called butyrate. Think of butyrate as a maintenance crew working quietly behind the scenes. It helps strengthen the intestinal barrier, reduce inflammation, and support the function of the beta cells inside your pancreas, the very cells responsible for producing insulin. As we age, chronic low-grade inflammation becomes more common. Many adults over 60 don't even realize it's happening. They simply notice that losing weight becomes harder, energy levels begin to decline, and blood sugar numbers slowly creep upward year after year. A healthier gut environment can help interrupt that cycle. And that's one reason fresh mozzarella deserves a place on this list. Nutritionally, it offers a powerful combination. In a 100-gram serving, fresh mozzarella provides approximately 18 grams of high-quality protein, almost no carbohydrate, and a moderate amount of healthy fat. That combination helps slow digestion and reduces the speed at which glucose enters the bloodstream after a meal. But let me tell you about someone who discovered this firsthand. A patient I'll call Kathleen Anderson came to see me at age 67. Her HbA1c was sitting at 7.2, and she was frustrated. Several years earlier, she had been told that all dairy products were bad for diabetes. So she removed every form of cheese from her diet. No mozzarella, no cottage cheese, no yogurt, nothing. The problem was that her numbers weren't improving. In fact, she felt worse. She was constantly hungry between meals. She struggled with afternoon fatigue. And nearly every day, she found herself reaching for sweets just to make it through the afternoon. Instead of eliminating more foods, we made one small adjustment. 4 times each week, she added a simple lunch consisting of fresh mozzarella, sliced tomatoes, fresh basil, and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Nothing complicated, nothing expensive, just real food. 3 months later, her HbA1c had fallen to 6.5. More importantly, she told me something that couldn't be measured by a lab test. The cravings were gone. For the first time in years, she felt satisfied after meals now. There is one important detail I want you to remember. Not all mozzarella products are created equal. Many highly processed cheese sticks and packaged snack products contain added ingredients and significantly higher sodium levels. Whenever possible, choose fresh mozzarella with a short ingredient list. If you can find mozzarella made from buffalo milk, even better. The fatty acid profile is often more favorable and may provide additional metabolic benefits. And if you also struggle with high blood pressure, pay close attention to the sodium content listed on the label. Fresh mozzarella may not look like a powerful blood sugar food. It certainly doesn't get the attention of trendy supplements or expensive health products. But sometimes the most powerful tools are also the simplest, and this cheese proves exactly that. Now let's move to number 4, because the next cheese on our list protects blood sugar in a completely different way, and it may be one of the most effective appetite control foods you can put on your plate. Now let's move to number 4 on our list, and this is a cheese that many people walk past every single week without realizing how powerful it can be for blood sugar control. I'm talking about cottage cheese. At first glance, cottage cheese doesn't look particularly exciting. It isn't aged for years. It doesn't come from Europe. It doesn't have the rich flavor of Parmesan or the creamy texture of mozzarella. In fact, many people consider it boring. But sometimes the foods that create the biggest impact on your health are the ones that attract the least attention. What makes cottage cheese special isn't what it does to your blood sugar immediately after you eat it. It's what it prevents from happening later. And that distinction is incredibly important. You see, most people think diabetes management is all about controlling the meal sitting in front of them right now. They focus on breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But after nearly 14 years of working with patients, I've learned that some of the biggest blood sugar problems don't happen during meals at all. They happen between meals. They happen at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when energy suddenly crashes. They happen in the evening when boredom meets hunger. They happen when a person opens the pantry looking for just one small snack and ends up eating far more than they intended. That's where cottage cheese shines. In a 100-gram serving, cottage cheese provides roughly 11 to 12 grams of protein while containing fewer than 4 grams of carbohydrate. It's one of the highest protein-to-calorie foods you'll find in the dairy section of any grocery store. And protein has a remarkable effect on the body. When you consume enough protein, your digestive system releases powerful satiety hormones such as peptide YY and cholecystokinin. These hormones send signals to the brain that say something very important. You're full. You don't need more food. You can stop eating now. For many adults over 60, those signals become incredibly valuable because appetite regulation often changes with age. Some people find themselves constantly hungry even after eating a meal. Others struggle with cravings that seem impossible to control. Cottage cheese helps create a feeling of satisfaction that can last for several hours, and that may protect your blood sugar far more than most people realize. Let me tell you about a patient named Robert Mitchell. Robert was 72 years old when he first came to see me. His morning blood sugar wasn't terrible, and his HbA1c wasn't alarming. But every afternoon followed the exact same pattern. Around 3 o'clock, he would start feeling tired, his energy would drop, his concentration would disappear, and before long he found himself reaching for crackers, cookies, pretzels, or whatever happened to be nearby. By dinner time, his blood sugar was often much higher than expected. The problem wasn't breakfast. The problem wasn't lunch. The problem was the hours in between. I suggested a simple experiment. Every morning, Robert would eat a serving of plain cottage cheese alongside fresh berries and a handful of walnuts. Nothing drastic, nothing complicated, just one small change. Within a few weeks, something remarkable happened. The afternoon cravings began fading. His energy became more stable. He stopped raiding the pantry every afternoon. And over the following months, his glucose readings became noticeably more predictable. There was another benefit working quietly in the background as well. Cottage cheese is naturally rich in calcium, and research continues to suggest that adequate calcium intake may support healthy insulin sensitivity over time. It's not a dramatic overnight effect. It's the kind of improvement that builds slowly, month after month, as healthy habits accumulate. Now, there is one trap I want you to avoid. Not all cottage cheese products are created equally. Many flavored varieties contain fruit syrups, added sugars, or sweetened toppings that can completely undermine the benefits we're discussing. If you pick up a container and see ingredients like syrup, cane sugar, or fruit juice concentrate near the top of the list, put it back on the shelf. Choose plain cottage cheese whenever possible. Add your own strawberries, blueberries, kiwi, or cinnamon if you'd like more flavor. The goal is to let the protein work for you, not against you. Because when it comes to controlling blood sugar after 60, preventing unnecessary cravings can be just as important as controlling carbohydrates. And that brings us to number 3 on our list, a cheese with a fascinating connection to one of the most dangerous types of fat hidden deep inside the human body. Now we're moving into the top 3, and this is where things start getting really interesting. Because number 3 on my list isn't just another cheese. It's a cheese connected to one of the most dangerous forms of fat in the human body. A type of fat that most people never see, never feel, and often never think about until serious health problems begin to appear. I'm talking about feta cheese. When most people hear the word feta, they think about Greek salads, Mediterranean restaurants, or crumbled cheese sprinkled over vegetables. What they don't realize is that authentic feta contains a unique nutritional profile that may support better insulin sensitivity and healthier metabolic function as we age. But to understand why, we first need to talk about something called visceral fat. Now, visceral fat is very different from the fat you can pinch around your waist. It's not the fat you see in the mirror. It's not the fat sitting directly under your skin. Visceral fat hides deep inside the abdominal cavity. It wraps itself around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, and other vital organs. And while you may never notice it's there, your body certainly does. I often explain it to my patients this way. Imagine the engine of a car. From the outside, the vehicle looks perfectly fine. The paint is shiny, the tires are full, everything appears normal. But underneath the hood, thick layers of grease have begun coating every important component. The engine has to work harder. It runs hotter, it becomes less efficient, and eventually problems start appearing. That's exactly what visceral fat does inside the human body. It interferes with insulin signaling. It increases inflammation. It forces the pancreas and liver to work harder every single day. And over time, it becomes one of the strongest drivers of insulin resistance in adults over 60. This is where feta becomes fascinating. Authentic feta is traditionally made from sheep's milk or a blend of sheep's and goat's milk. And compared to standard cow's milk dairy products, sheep's milk contains significantly higher levels of a naturally occurring fatty acid known as conjugated linoleic acid, often abbreviated as CLA. Now, CLA may not be a household name, but researchers have spent years studying its potential effects on metabolism. Several studies have linked CLA to improved insulin sensitivity, healthier body composition, and reductions in visceral fat accumulation. In simple terms, it may help the body become more responsive to insulin while supporting the gradual reduction of the dangerous fat surrounding internal organs. That's a powerful combination for anyone trying to manage blood sugar after 60. Nutritionally, feta is impressive as well. A 100-gram serving provides approximately 14 grams of protein while remaining very low in carbohydrates. Because it is also a fermented cheese, it contributes beneficial bacteria that help support gut health, creating another layer of metabolic support. Let me share the story of James Carter. James was 70 years old when we first discussed his lab results. His blood sugar numbers placed him firmly in the prediabetic range. His waist circumference had increased steadily over the years, and imaging revealed elevated visceral fat levels around his abdominal organs. Like many people, James assumed that reducing calories alone would solve the problem. But despite eating less, his progress remained frustratingly slow. So we made a few changes inspired by a Mediterranean-style eating pattern. Several times each week, he replaced processed snack foods with a simple Greek salad made from cucumbers, tomatoes, olives, extra virgin olive oil, and authentic feta cheese. No complicated meal plans, no expensive supplements, just consistent, nutrient-dense food choices. Months later, the changes became noticeable. His waistline gradually decreased, his energy improved, his blood sugar readings became more stable. And perhaps most importantly, he finally felt like he was working with his body instead of constantly fighting against it. Now, before you rush to the grocery store, there are two important things to remember. First, not all feta is the same. Many products labeled as feta in American supermarkets are made primarily from cow's milk. While they may taste similar, they don't provide the same fatty acid profile found in authentic Greek feta. Look for labels that specifically mention sheep's milk or sheep and goat milk. Second, feta is naturally preserved in brine, which means it can contain a significant amount of sodium. If you have high blood pressure, a simple rinse under cool water before serving can help reduce some of that sodium without sacrificing flavor. Because sometimes the foods that look the simplest carry benefits that run far deeper than we ever imagined. And now we're ready for number 2, a cheese with a surprising connection to one of the very same hormone pathways targeted by today's most advanced diabetes medications. Now we've reached number 2 on our list. And if you've been paying close attention so far, what I'm about to share may be the most surprising thing you've heard in this entire video. Because this next cheese has a connection to one of the very same hormone pathways targeted by some of today's most talked about diabetes medications. I'm talking about ricotta cheese. Now at first glance, ricotta doesn't look particularly impressive. It doesn't have the bold flavor of feta, it doesn't carry the prestige of aged Parmesan. It's soft, mild, and often overlooked. But beneath that simplicity lies a fascinating piece of nutritional science. You see, most cheeses are made from the solid curds that form when milk is processed. Ricotta is different. Ricotta is traditionally made from whey, the liquid portion left behind after other cheeses are produced. And that single difference changes almost everything about how this cheese behaves inside the human body. To understand why, let's talk about protein. Not all proteins are created equal. Most traditional cheeses contain a protein called casein. Casein digests slowly and provides a steady release of amino acids over time. Ricotta, however, contains a significant amount of whey protein. Whey is absorbed much more rapidly by the body and contains high concentrations of an amino acid called leucine. And leucine plays a remarkable role in metabolic health. When leucine reaches the digestive system, it helps stimulate the release of hormones involved in satiety, glucose regulation, and insulin response. One of the most important of these hormones is called GLP-1. Now, if that name sounds familiar, there's a reason. GLP-1 is the same hormone pathway targeted by medications such as semaglutide and tirzepatide, drugs that have gained enormous attention for their ability to improve blood sugar control and support weight management. Of course, ricotta isn't a medication, but it's fascinating to realize that certain foods can naturally encourage the body to activate some of the same biological systems. In fact, several clinical studies have shown that consuming whey protein before or alongside a meal can significantly reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. For someone living with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, that matters enormously. Because every large glucose spike creates stress on the body. Every spike forces the pancreas to work harder. Every spike contributes to the long-term wear and tear that gradually damages blood vessels, nerves, kidneys, and the cardiovascular system. Reducing those spikes, even modestly, can make a meaningful difference over time. And that's exactly why ricotta earned the number 2 position on this list. Let me tell you about Raymond Walker. Raymond was 71 years old and had been managing type 2 diabetes for more than 12 years. Like many people, he had developed a predictable daily pattern. Every afternoon around 4 o'clock, he hit what he called the wall. His energy disappeared. His focus faded. His hands occasionally felt shaky, and before long he found himself searching for something sweet: cookies, pastries, candy, anything that could give him a quick burst of energy. The problem was that those quick fixes created even more instability later in the day. So instead of focusing on what Raymond needed to remove, we focused on what he could add. I suggested a simple afternoon snack consisting of half a cup of ricotta, a slice of whole grain toast, and a small handful of almonds. Nothing extreme, nothing restrictive, just a combination designed to provide protein, healthy fat, and slower digestion. A few weeks later, Raymond noticed something remarkable. The afternoon crashes became less intense. Then they became less frequent, and eventually, they nearly disappeared altogether. His pre-dinner glucose readings became noticeably more stable, and for the first time in years, he felt like he had regained control over one of the most frustrating parts of his day. Now, there is one challenge with ricotta that I hear all the time. Many people simply don't enjoy the flavor when they first try it. And honestly, I understand why. Plain ricotta has a very mild taste, but here's a simple trick. Mix in fresh herbs like basil, parsley, or chives. Add a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil and a small pinch of sea salt. Suddenly, that bland cheese transforms into something rich, satisfying, and genuinely enjoyable. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is finding healthy foods you'll actually continue eating. Because consistency always beats intensity when it comes to long-term health. And now we've arrived at the final step of our countdown, the number one: cheese. The one that surprises almost every patient I've ever discussed it with. The cheese most people use only as a garnish without realizing it contains one of the most important nutrients connected to healthy aging, strong bones, healthier arteries, and better metabolic function. And once you understand the science behind it, you'll never look at it the same way again. And now we've arrived at number one, the cheese that surprises almost everyone. The cheese most people keep in their refrigerator without ever realizing what it truly contains. The cheese that many people sprinkle on pasta, salad, or soup without giving it a second thought. And yet, from a metabolic perspective, it may be the most powerful cheese on this entire list. I'm talking about authentic aged Parmesan, not the powdered version sitting in a plastic shaker, not the highly processed imitation products. I'm talking about real Parmigiano Reggiano, or a high-quality aged Parmesan that has been carefully matured for 18 to 24 months or longer. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Parmesan? Really? Of all the cheeses available, how could Parmesan possibly rank above mozzarella, feta, or ricotta? The answer lies in something most people have never heard their doctor discuss: vitamin K2. And once you understand what this nutrient does inside the body, you'll understand why Parmesan earned the number one position on this list. Let's start with the basics. As Parmesan ages over many months, complex biological changes occur inside the cheese. Proteins are broken down, lactose is almost completely removed, nutrients become more concentrated. The result is a remarkably dense food. In a serving of roughly 30 grams, just a few tablespoons of grated Parmesan, you can get approximately 8 grams of protein while consuming virtually no carbohydrate. That's impressive by itself. But the real story begins with vitamin K2. Think of vitamin K2 as a traffic director inside your body. Every day, calcium is moving through your bloodstream. The question is where that calcium ends up. When sufficient vitamin K2 is present, calcium is directed toward places where it belongs, such as your bones and teeth. When vitamin K2 is lacking, calcium can gradually accumulate in places where it doesn't belong, including the walls of arteries and soft tissues throughout the body. And that becomes especially important as we age. Because after 60, many people are facing two challenges at the same time. Their bones are becoming weaker, and their arteries are becoming harder. What makes this even more concerning for people living with diabetes is that diabetes significantly increases the risk of arterial calcification. In simple terms, calcium deposits can build up inside blood vessels, reducing flexibility and increasing cardiovascular risk over time. This is where vitamin K2 becomes so interesting. Researchers have spent years investigating the relationship between vitamin K2 intake and metabolic health. Some large observational studies have found that people who consume higher amounts of vitamin K2 tend to have lower rates of type 2 diabetes and better long-term cardiovascular outcomes. Now, no single food is a miracle. No cheese can replace medication. No nutrient can erase years of poor metabolic health overnight. But small advantages accumulated consistently over time can create remarkable results. And that's exactly what happened with one of my patients. Her name was Laura Bennett. Laura was 69 years old when she first came to see me. Her HbA1c measured 6.2, placing her firmly in the prediabetes range. At the same time, she had recently learned that she was developing osteopenia, an early stage of bone loss that affects millions of women after menopause. As if that wasn't enough, a routine scan revealed the early stages of coronary artery calcification. 3 different problems: blood sugar, bone health, cardiovascular health, and all 3 were quietly connected. Instead of chasing extreme solutions, we focused on small, sustainable improvements. Laura continued her daily walks. She improved the quality of her meals. And she began adding 1 to 2 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano to vegetables, soups, and salads several times each week. Nothing dramatic, nothing restrictive, just consistent choices repeated day after day. 8 months later, her follow-up results told an encouraging story. Her HbA1c had fallen from 6.2 to 5.7. Her bone density remained stable. And most importantly, she felt stronger, more energetic, and more confident about her future. Now, was Parmesan solely responsible? Of course not. Health doesn't work that way. But it became part of a larger pattern of choices that supported her body rather than working against it. And that's the lesson I want you to remember. Too often, people think healthy eating means constantly removing foods from their lives. No cheese, no fat, no flavor, no enjoyment. But the healthiest people I've worked with over the years didn't build their success through endless restriction. They built it through intelligent selection. They learned which foods supported their goals and incorporated those foods consistently. An authentic aged Parmesan is one of those foods. A small amount delivers exceptional flavor. It contributes high-quality protein, it contains virtually no carbohydrate, and it provides one of the richest dietary sources of vitamin K2 available, which means that every time you sprinkle it over roasted vegetables, add it to a salad, or finish a bowl of soup, you're doing far more than improving flavor. You're giving your body nutrients that may support healthy aging from the inside out. And now that you've seen all 5 cheeses, there's one final thing we need to discuss. Because even the healthiest cheese can become a problem if you fall into the common traps waiting for you in the grocery store. Before we finish today, there's one final lesson I want you to remember. Because even the healthiest cheese on this list can work against your goals if you choose the wrong version at the grocery store. The first trap is processed American cheese slices. You know the ones I'm talking about. Individually wrapped, bright orange, convenient, but often loaded with modified starches, vegetable oils, preservatives, and ingredients that have very little in common with real cheese. They may look similar, but nutritionally, they're a completely different product. The second trap is pre-shredded cheese. Many manufacturers coat shredded cheese with cellulose powder or starches to prevent clumping. Those hidden additives may seem small, but they add unnecessary carbohydrates that many people never account for. The third trap is cream cheese. While it's not inherently harmful, it contains far more fat than protein. If your goal is better blood sugar control, it simply doesn't offer the same metabolic advantages as the cheeses we've discussed today. So here's what I want you to take away from this video. Mozzarella supports a healthier gut microbiome. Cottage cheese helps control cravings and reduce unnecessary snacking. Feta may support healthier insulin sensitivity and reduce dangerous visceral fat. Ricotta helps activate pathways linked to appetite control and blood sugar balance. And aged Parmesan provides valuable vitamin K2 that may support both cardiovascular and bone health. This week, challenge yourself to try one small change. Add a serving of ricotta to your lunch. Sprinkle real Parmesan over your vegetables. Pay attention to how you feel. Most importantly, never stop or change any prescribed medication without speaking to your doctor first. Everything we discuss here is meant to support professional medical care, never replace it. I'm Dr. D. Miller. Thank you for spending part of your day with me here on Health with Dr. D. Miller. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.